Films like Saving Private Ryan showed us the D-Day beach landings by the Allies against the Wehrmacht, the German defense forces in occupied France, but very few of us Brits will have heard of the history I'm about to share with you today. Welcome to the secret history of World War II. You would think, if you grew up on Hollywood films and Western schooling, that it was the British and the Americans that did everything, or at least the heavy lifting, to stop the German army during World War II and save the world from the fascist regime in Germany and all its evil. Us Brits aren't taught at school about the Russian, or more accurately, the Soviet contribution to defeating Nazi Germany and liberating Europe. In the often unmentioned East during World War II, Hitler invaded the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, by the way, was the large country that's now been broken up into Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, and a handful of others. Back then, they were all one country. Anyway, Hitler invaded the Soviet Union, expecting to seize the valuable resources and continue fueling his war machine. Britain was isolated, it's an island, that's how it works. France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, and Finland, as well as a whole bunch of the Eastern European Balkan countries, had already fallen. Italy was on Germany's side. Absolute domination on the European mainland. On the Eastern Front, though, where the Soviets stood alone, they made their stand for their collective homeland against the German invaders. Velikaya Otechestvenaya Voina, the Great Patriotic War, as they call it. Millions of Russians, Belarusians, and Ukrainians served side by side in the defense of their motherland as part of the Red Army. The Red Army, by the way, is the name often given to the Soviet armed forces. Germany didn't stand a chance. By the end of the war, Soviet tanks rolled into Berlin from the east, just as American tanks rolled into Berlin from the west. That part you know about, of course. And the war was won. Now, the military casualties taken by America, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union, over 400,000 American soldiers were killed. Over 380,000 British soldiers were killed. Over 8 million Soviet soldiers were killed. Million. Without their sacrifice, the sacrifice of the Russians and the Ukrainians and the Belarusians fighting side by side, we would all be speaking German, bruv. I may not even be speaking any European language at all. In fact, as I'm not sure what would have happened to British India under German rule. I hear Hitler had an issue with certain ethnicities, and I'm brown. That's probably even lower on his scale than others. Why don't we know about this history then, the history I've just talked about? Because the current global hegemon, the world's sole superpower, the United States, after World War II, during the Cold War, was struggling for domination between America and the Soviet Union. And of course, it made sense to minimize the contribution of the Soviets to the victory in Europe during World War II. Can't be giving them the credit they deserve. That would make them look good. And after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, of course, it's not particularly high on the list of priorities in Western countries to teach their kids about the immense sacrifice of the Russians and Ukrainians and Belarusians during World War II. So, of course, even today, Hollywood will show you a dirt-covered American soldier as the poster boy for victory in Europe. But remember the number now that you know it. 8 million Soviet soldiers. And remember the history now that you've learnt it. Credit given where credit is due. Thank you to the Soviet Union.